Welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight, where we shine the light and talk with business leaders all over the world to share their insights and expertise so we can all grow together. I'm your host, Heidi, and I'm excited to be chatting with my guest today. It's a Friday, so we're ready for some fun. And before we dive in, though, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome to the Business Growth Spotlight. Make sure you stick around because we're going to give you a gift at the end. But without further ado, I want to welcome my guest, Ginger Ontiveros with Tomorrow's Talent to the show. Welcome, Ginger.
Thank you, Heidi. It's really a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to talk with you. So, can you just get the ball rolling for us and tell us a little bit about who you are, the company, and your role inside of it?
Well, I am Ginger Ontiveros, as you've said. I am the president and CEO of Tomorrow's Talent. And we're an intermediary organization that works in the space between school and work to help students make the transition more successfully into their future. So, our company is celebrating our 5th year anniversary this year. We were founded by a very visionary education leader when he retired from the superintendency of a large urban school district. He recognized that there was just this gap between school and work where a lot of students got lost in between. Mm-hmm. And there wasn't anybody really in that gap to help support that transition. So he was inspired by the report from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation on the future of talent finance, which basically said the future of our workforce development systems really involves 3 parties: the educator, the employer, and an intermediary organization. And that's what we are.
Well, I'm so glad that he decided to do this after his, especially with his experience in his career. I have, as we were talking behind the scenes, I have children. My son's 14. My daughter's a sophomore in high school. So, and I've been wanting her to get into an internship. She wants to get a job. And I'm like, internships are important. So, and
They
I can
are.
see how they're important to both sides, which we're going to get into. But I think it's really great what you all are doing.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So, Tomorrow's Talent focuses on aligning education with workforce needs. So, what is the biggest disconnect that you've seen between schools and employers today?
Well, I think that everybody would agree that there is a gap. I don't talk to schools that don't say they want more employers to be involved. I don't talk to employers who say that every new employee who comes out of school is perfect fit for them. There's definitely a gap in between. We believe that that gap is largely based in the fact that there's a very different culture and purpose in education than there is in the place of business where those students are going to go to work. Even inside of school systems, the role of being the employer is very different than the role of being the educator. Mm-hmm. And so both sides of that equation do not have the time and energy to really understand the other side of that, of that gap. So it just continues to provide opportunities for students to get lost in between and for their futures to be stifled. And quite frankly, it also costs businesses a lot of money, this gap as well. So there's real reasons for both educators and employers to think about how they fill that gap. The Gallup organization several years ago did a study where they asked chief academic officers, they said, how well are you doing at preparing the next generation for the real world of work? And 96% of us, because I came out of education, said, we rock, we're doing a great job. Our kids are ready for the future. Hire them tomorrow, right? But 11% of businesses agreed. So that's a huge, huge difference. Wow. And I can tell you that a lot of that difference is not in the technical skills they're learning today. Businesses have, oftentimes we talk to business leaders, and there's a misconception about what schools are promoting. They believe that schools are 100% everybody go to college, which is important. And we would never say college isn't important. But I'm going to tell you that schools today have brought back those labs that business people think got taken out on steroids. Labs and shops in high schools today and in colleges today have state-of-the-art equipment. They are teaching young people very high-level technical skills. Mm-hmm. And even in high school, they're earning industry-recognized certifications that can put them into a workplace tomorrow doing things that maybe even some of the more seasoned employees haven't really been exposed to yet. So there's really advantages happening in the technical skills. The challenge that comes in the space between them really has to do a lot more with soft skills. The gap is growing in the opportunity for young people to gain employment when they're young. AI and automation are just removing a lot of entry-level jobs. In fact, today, 35% of every job labeled entry-level requires 3 years of experience. If that's entry-level, where do you get that experience, right?
Right.
So, that gap or that place for young people to practice being employed is getting less and less available. I mean, when I was young, I had a paper route and then I was a hostess, right? I mean, I had those opportunities in the real world of work to learn how to show up on time, to learn how to help customers, to learn how to be responsible and meet deadlines, to learn how to address conflict if I had any, and to learn how to respect the people who'd been there for years before me and put in the hard work to build the company to where it was. And today, our students are just not given those opportunities to learn how to navigate that environment. So the gap is bigger, and we since COVID, it's gotten even bigger. Schools were doing a great job of connecting to employers, and when COVID came around, they sent us all back to our corners. And now, with the addition of AI or the ramp up of AI and automation, it's just more difficult for that integration to happen. So
Yeah, you said so many good things there. And
I know I talk a lot. Sorry.
no, it's great because now I can pull stuff. I love when my guests talk. I do. It's better than a one-word answer or a one-sentence answer because I get to pull from it. And you said so many great things. And for example, you were a hostess, and I know when I first started working, I worked at the Gap was my first job, and I quickly realized that retail is not my thing. It's not the right job for me. And I didn't like being in the mall either. That's why I probably never really was an avid shopper because my first job was in the mall. But getting that experience, and I know for us, like you were a hostess. My daughter's actually going on an interview tomorrow to be a hostess at a restaurant, and luckily they wanted her to come in today, and she just applied. So they're hiring. They're urgent. But most of the places around here are not. I know last year when she was looking, nobody was hiring for, 15's hard anyway, being 15 to 14, but still it's just not as open, easy to get hired around here. So that's why I was telling her internship is really important, and it gives you the opportunity to figure out what you like and don't like before you do make that decision. And now you're feeling like I'm on my own. I've got these responsibilities, and now I'm doing something I really don't like. And I know I'm talking from the student side or the person side. You're going to talk from the business side. But you also mentioned AI, and I've heard from people that there is a third. You're not the first one to tell me on this podcast that they want 3 years experience. Well, how are these students supposed to get 3 years experience for an entry level job? It's like, kind of a catch-22. It's like, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? How do we get that experience for them to get those positions? And you mentioned AI. So let's dive into that. What rapid advances in AI and automation, with rapid advances in AI and automation, how should we be preparing the students and workers for jobs that may not even exist yet?
Well, schools are doing a great job of teaching young people how to think. They need a place to practice it. Don't get me wrong. Right? I think that's really one of the keys is we have to really help young people to understand the tools that are out there and how to leverage those tools in a way that make them more efficient. And that's what AI does. So forward-thinking schools now are embedding instruction on AI into their curriculum, not necessarily being afraid of it. I mean, one day we didn't, in one time in our history, we didn't have calculators either, right? But
Right.
today we're not doing math on the abacus anymore, right? We use the calculator. There used to be the Dewey Decimal System, but now we use Google, right? So AI is just another tool that we can absolutely employ. So it's important to give young people exposure to using that tool responsibly, right? Because we all know that AI is very helpful, but it's also sometimes inaccurate. And it's important to be able to have that critical thinking skill to go in there and say, yeah, I need to verify that, or I need to check this, or this isn't exactly right. So the schools that are really stepping out there and embedding that into their curriculum is important. And we do some of that too in the training that we provide for work readiness. So yeah.
I remember when calculators, I remember when we were in school using a calculator, they were worried, are the kids going to learn anything? Are they going to cheat? Like, and now people are worried that I think some of the schools are worried about the AI. And I know for my kids, I'm seeing they're going back to paper a lot because I'm like, well, how come this wasn't turned in? Or I'm checking their online and seeing where they're at with their studies. They're like, oh, I had to turn in that's paper. They haven't graded it yet. And I'm like, I thought like we had gotten away, especially with the pandemic, of going into more of the computer-based learning. And now it seems like they're pulling back because of a little fear, I think, around AI that's going to keep the kids from learning. But unfortunately, that can be hurtful to them down the road when it comes to the job hunt.
Yeah, we definitely would agree with that. I mean, not only is it important to prepare students to be able to use it in the workplace because it's expected today that you know
Mhm.
how to leverage technology to be more efficient, that you can leverage AI to be efficient, but it's also can be a phenomenal study tool to help you master the knowledge, the baseline knowledge, so that you can recognize when AI isn't right. Like you know, it can be a very good study tool as well. So I'm personally, if I was a teacher, I am not a teacher, but if I was, I would be all about use every technology you can to get to the right answer because that's the real world, right? Like
Right.
I don't have to memorize anything. I can look it up. And the faster I know how to look it up and the more efficient I am at using that data or that information that's provided through whatever tool I'm able to master
Mm.
is better for the company I work for and makes me a more marketable employee. So I 100% am on that page with you. You know, there are some educators and just like there are in some businesses that are afraid to evolve because I've always done it that way, right? This is what we know works. And I will say as well, schools, going back to that culture difference, right? Schools are also constrained sometimes by things like standardized testing, right?
Right.
They do have to have students master some knowledge because if they don't perform well on standardized testing, there's consequences for schools, right? So, and there's actually consequences for young people too, because you know when you're in school and you do standardized testing when you're younger, it informs the counselor for what you know classes to provide for you. So there's got to be a balance. I mean, the
Right.
students do have to master some baseline knowledge, but we absolutely, as a society, having these tools come in, have to find a way to engage students more in critical thinking and leveraging of those technologies. So, yeah.
Yeah, and getting creative because there's so many different platforms now. Like I'm just learning about Grok and Perplexity. I'm like, where have I been? You know,
Mm-hmm.
like GBT and Claude is popular, but now there's Grok, and that's a great one. There's so many more coming, and Perplexity is more like that's where I think the kids can use that to really, really dive in and learn more and get deep in information. And I would think it would be a tool to get them more excited about the content because in schools they're only giving us able to give so much information. But if the kids were able to go deeper with it, they could really spark some light bulbs off for them and be like, oh, wow, I never thought I would be interested in this, but I am. So, yeah, so good. So, what role does early career exposure like internships or job shadowing play in closing the workforce readiness gap?
Well, young people today have so many education opportunities in front of them,
Mm.
but they have fewer and fewer opportunities to experience the variety of careers that are out there. You know, so much of life for young people is done online that you would think that would open up the world to them, but it actually sometimes makes it more narrow, I guess, because they're able to curate exactly what they want to do as opposed to just accidentally being exposed to things that they had to be before. So we really believe that career exploration or the you know just engagement with employers needs to happen younger, far younger than it's happening now. So
Mm.
more of it should happen in elementary school, just from the standpoint of awareness of the variety of careers that are out there. There need to be tools and resources brought in to help students make decisions about the path and the opportunities in front of them in school.
Mm.
You know, it's our belief that more young people should have more guidance to choose which career pathway in high school that they want to take, and to have a more clear picture of what their first waypoint on their career might look like before they get into college. I say that because today there are way too many young people doing career exploration in college.
Mm.
They didn't take advantage of the pathways that were available to them because they were not really maybe given the tools to explore most fully. They didn't get engaged with a variety of employers to understand what these environments looked like or felt like or smelled like or sounded like. So, we just really think that there's such a need for young people to be equipped to make a better decision about what life after high school looks like. Um, I will tell you too, I had an encounter with a high school senior who was out at one of our experiences with us, and she was talking with one of the employer mentors that we had brought to that experience, and she was really sharing a lot of anxiety about this decision about her college major and what was I going to do with the rest of my life. And one of the pieces of advice was, you don't have to make that decision yet. You can get into college and explore. And while that's true, you start paying for it in college. You start racking up debt in college, right? There's so many opportunities to explore in high school and to do it earlier so that you can have a more efficient path through college. We know student debt is a huge problem in our country. And the fact that we're not giving younger people more tools and helping them to make a better decision about what they're going to study when they get to college, if they choose to go to college, is a travesty, quite frankly. And the other thing I think, and this is what my follow up to the student was, is it's not a life sentence. I think this pressure that sometimes that students are putting on themselves about what they want to do when they grow up, like what major do they want to have, is leading them to believe that this is a one and done decision. Like I have to decide now what I'm going to be doing when I'm 76, right? Like that is way too much pressure. I don't even know what I'm going to do when I'm 76, right? But I
We're
do
hoping
know
to
that
get there.
my career has taken multiple angles. I would never have thought when I was a young person that I was going to be running an intermediary organization. I didn't even know what one of those was, right? I wanted to be Connie Chung. That'll give you some idea of how old I am, right? So, so I think those two things are important. One, more exposure to careers, more tools and guidance, so that they can take advantage of the phenomenal opportunities that are happening in schools today to prepare them for the real world of work. And then, just a little bit lighter of the pressure to choose what they want to do. Like not lighter to choose coming out of high school, have a direction going into college because it's real money that you're putting on the table. And even though it doesn't feel real because student loans are so easy to get, someday that's going to come back and haunt you. So let's get them to understand what the first waypoint is and start talking about it that way so they can go from high school through college to that waypoint and then decide once they're earning what they want to do with the next waypoint, right? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic advice. Like that was just, we got to put neon lights to what you just said. It's true. And you were taught, I so much resonates with me with everything you shared because my daughter, she's a sophomore, and even today in the car on the way home, she was like, what I want to do when I grow. I'm like, I don't even know what I want to do. I don't. She goes, I have no idea what I want to do, and she could see the stress and the weight that's that she's feeling because they're seniors right now. I mean, she has classes with seniors. Being a sophomore, they're like in with different grade levels depending on the class, and she's like, they all know what they want to do. I'm like, I guarantee you they don't. Not all of them do, and they're feeling the same pressure, if not more so than you are, because this is their last year of high school. They're kind of entering the quote unquote real world by either going to college and that's their next step. But they, like you said, you want to have a direction. And if you don't, you kind of feel like, oh my, what am I going to do? Or they're actually not going to school and then they need to, they're figuring that out. What would you say? And this, I don't know if this is the appropriate question because this is more for like me as a parent and thinking about the students, like the young girl the young lady you had spoken to, and seeing my daughter, the stress that she's feeling sometimes. Maybe I know for parents, we're so busy. I try and pick them up. Like one of the reasons I started my business, I wanted to be home with my kids. But not everybody has that opportunity. And I've pivoted so many times. So I
Mhm.
totally get it. Like I've gone probably 10 directions at least in my life, if not a little more. What are ways that parents can be more aware of this and help their kids and vice versa? How do these students find out more about how to even navigate moving into an internship or where do they begin?
Well, there's a lot of answer to that, and I'm going to take a little. You sort of invited me to take a little segue here, so I'm going to take that. Right. You know, aside from the gap between school and work, one of the challenges that's happening in the workplace is the number of generations that are currently working
Mm,
today. So, for the first time in history, we have 5 generations that are active in the workplace. And every time a new generation enters the workplace, there's friction, right? Because while they might have been raised in the same community, certainly in the same country, the community or country was different when they were raised than when the person running the company that hired them was raised, right? So they come to the workplace with a whole other set of expectations or interests or values than what the previous generation did. So, a couple of things that I would say about just preparing young people for their future in the workplace is really to understand how older generations grew up and why those generations might be asking certain things of them that they think are silly based on the world they grew up in.
mm,
Just that creating more of that empathy across
yeah.
the generations, I think would be a helpful thing to help young people be successful quicker, I guess, in the workplace. So, and I know that was a complete aside. I would say employers also have to recognize that we need to create opportunities for young people in the way of internships, make more of them available so that young people can get exposure to working in this environment where there are multiple generations, right? Because today, schools will do a great job. Like I said, they've got state of the art shops, they've got state of the art equipment. Kids know how to weld, they know how to create websites, they know how to, intake a healthcare patient doing the blood pressure and all the things that make me queasy, right? They know all these things. But what they don't have the opportunity to do is practice it in a place where they have to deal with these other generations. Because when they're in school, they're doing it with their peers, right? They're doing it with their friends. If they mess up, it's okay. But in the real world, it can have consequences. So they need to have that exposure to that environment. And employers need to recognize, I'm going on a big segue from your question, but
That's good.
I'm like, employers need to recognize that when they have a student who's coming in for an internship, what that intern needs is a real experience. Because as parents in our generation, right, we started seeing kids show up on milk cartons and we became the entertainment directors for our children, right? We took them to soccer practice and piano lessons, and we made sure there was never a bore, they were never bored, ever. There was always something fun for them to do or engaging or entertaining. And as employers, sometimes when we start to create internship experiences, we have our parent hat on because we see a young person. And that causes employers to think internships are a lot of work
Mm.
and I have to create this, I have to think about what they're going to do all the time. And, it gets stressful for the employer who has to worry about their bottom line and can they pay the employees that they have tomorrow, right? So we try to tell employers to create real experiences, expect that student to be able to deliver something real that's beneficial to your company. Don't create a whole bunch of tours and other kinds of experiences for them and call that an internship. That's valuable, but it's not an internship.
Mm.
So when we talk about parents and what parents should do, I think it's really about instilling good work ethic in your children and helping them to understand why showing up on time is important. Helping them to understand that when there's a deadline for your homework, that means something. Enforcing, consequences for when you don't do your chores, right? Learning those lessons when you're young, we don't teach those things as much as we used to. There's all kinds of reasons for it, but we're not as good at that. And there are even many parents today. I worked in the K-12 school system, so I saw this, where when a school tries to enforce consequences for some
Oh,
behavior that a student didn't um, live up to, or an expectation they didn't live up to, that a parent will come in and defend their student, their child, against the school. And that is so detrimental
Yeah.
to what that student is learning about how to be accountable for themselves in the workplace. So, use the opportunity today to teach your young people these work ethics and these soft skills that are real. They're very real problems in the workplace. And I don't know if I totally answered your question, but
No,
I
you did great. And I
okay,
love that
good.
you brought in all of the different generations because it's so true. I heard that from somebody else too, it's a new issue, right?
Mhm.
It's that businesses are navigating and the employees are navigating and the team and the
Yes.
culture is affected. But I
Mhm.
think it's such a beautiful, thing to have all of those
It
generations
is.
working together and learning how to communicate. And hopefully in the next, the more we're doing it, people will start to learn how to better, just like with your advice, like teach your kids now. And then that'll be able an easier
Mhm.
transition. So,
Mhm.
and again, also for the older generations, you gotta, they're people, they have value, they're smart,
Mhm.
they,
They are.
they give them the opportunity to shine
Mhm.
and the opportunity to trust that they're capable. And I think that's too, on the flip side, I think the
Mhm.
younger generation feels like, well, they think I'm stupid, or they don't think I'm
Mhm.
able to do this as good as them, or my ideas aren't valuable. Ginger, how can we better serve represented or underserved communities in preparing for high demand careers? Bleh. Did you understand anything I just
I
said
think
there?
I got you. I think I got you. Well, I think this kind of goes to the idea really of making more of these work-based learning experiences happen.
Okay.
Because when young people grow up in a community of affluence or in a home where parents are connected to opportunity, they open doors for their students, right? For their kids, right? I know I did. I called my friends and said, "Hey, my kid needs a job. Can you help me open a door for them?" And sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't, but you advocate for your kids, right? In some of the more marginalized communities, families don't have those networks. They don't have those same kinds of connections, and certainly not perhaps in the field that a young person has decided they're passionate about, right? So there need to be other ways for them to build that social network and to create those connections. And so when we're talking about it from the young person's perspective, they need for businesses and employers to become mentors to them. And quite frankly, Gen Z is probably one of the most mentor hungry generations that we've ever seen. Like they want to learn from, yes, they want to be respected for their ideas, but they also want to learn. They want mentors, professional development or the ability to grow in their skills and be given challenges and opportunities and to learn
Mm.
is a key part of what will keep them at an employer's place of business for a long time. Like if they feel like they can grow, they will stay. If they feel like they can't grow, and that doesn't always mean money, but
Mhm.
it does mean investment in them as a professional is important. So so I think that what needs to happen to help young people in some of these communities get connected is that more employers need to recognize why opening themselves up to connections in our schools and is important for building a long-term workforce pipeline, and really start to look at that like a business decision so that they will not do this always just out of altruistic means. I mean, it's important if they want to do it just to help the young generation, but in all reality, it's going to be critical to their businesses and their business growth as well.
Mm.
So, we really want for more businesses to recognize that this is, a potential crisis. I mean, there's data that says only 2% of high school students get internships today.
Wow.
And that's insane when you think about it, especially because there's also data that shows that the employment rate of teenagers is directly related to the labor participation rate of adults. So if teenagers aren't working, communities where teenagers aren't working typically have lower adult labor participation rates. And that's a huge indicator of economic success. So if
Mhm.
we want vibrant communities for our businesses to grow in, we need to think about that next generation and start opening doors for them to have real paid experiences in the workplace younger. It has real ramifications for businesses and for their bottom lines. Yes, so businesses really need to pay attention to the fact that young people today are very disconnected from the workplace. There are nearly 5 million people ages 16 to 24 who are either not in school and not working, right? They're neither in school or working. And that's costing our country $93 billion a year in lost wages, lower tax revenues, and increased social service costs. It's another reason is because it really stifles careers when we don't invest in these kinds of experiences. 53% of students who graduate with a bachelor's degree, the holy grail of education, right, find themselves or underemployed after they graduate from college. And if they find themselves in that space, it usually stays that way for 10 years. So
Wow.
that is a huge amount of potential that is pent up in this generation that we are losing just because we didn't make connections early enough, right?
Right.
And this is happening in large part because work is so transactional today, right? I pay you, so I expect you to work, right? But what we need to do is get to a place where we are addressing the loyalty factor, loyalty from employers and the investment that employers are making in their workforce. And also that would then stimulate more loyalty from the next generation. So, work is cost this turnover or this transactional nature is costing businesses a lot of money in turnover.
Mhm.
We estimate that a business who has about 100 employees is probably spending about $1 million a year in churn, and they don't even know it.
Wow.
And they're spending that again because they have to have more HR staff. They have to have more recruiting. They have to do more onboarding. They have to do, more exiting of employees, right? There's all kinds of things that are in there. The lost productivity that comes from churn is costing them money. And so it's really important that we help businesses to understand that connecting with their next generation of workforce through some very creative ways of building internships or apprenticeships into that entry level space will help them to reduce their churn, saving them far more money than they're investing and creating a more loyal workforce as a result. So,
Wow. Thank you for all of that. That was really good, great information. You're sharing like so many good stuff. And I know I'm a little biased because I have kids, so this is definitely helping me.
mm-hmm.
And I know it's helping others out there. So, Ginger, I want to switch gears a little bit before we wrap up on business growth. You all started 5 years ago. I'm tongue-tied today, but it's okay. It's Friday.
That's
Um,
me too sometimes. It's okay.
so what was I just saying? I do not have these
You
problems.
want to talk about business growth?
Business
We're
growth.
5 years old.
Yes. So this is how we roll, people. Like some days we're just flowing like like the water, on whatever, it's easily flowing, and the other days it's just not. And it's just one of those days for me.
Well,
But
we're
I'm so
people.
grateful to be here with you, Ginger, for
We
all
are
of this.
people. It's all good.
So yeah, I want to talk about business growth. You had mentioned that you all have been in business about 5 years. So can you share some of the challenges that you've faced in your journey and how you've overcome them?
Sure. So I'll start out first with that. I've only been here about 2.5 of that time. So I'll start out with Dale's story because he was the superintendent of a large urban school district. He had a army of about 8,000 employees that when he wanted to get something done, he would say, "We need to do this," and there was somebody who did it, right? And when he decided to start Tomorrow's Talent, he was a army of one, right? And like a lot of entrepreneurs are when they want to start a company, right? So, he knew this was the right work to do. He was passionate and committed to do it, but it became very clear to him that what he was really good at and what he really relied on that team of 8,000 people to do. So he started building a team of people who could help him to grow the organization. And today we have about 30 people who work with us, about a $5 million company, doing some important work, I think, in this space. And, so that I think was one challenge, is getting the right people,
Mm.
right, in the right seats on the bus. So,
Oh, I
I
like that
think,
analogy.
right, right. Well, I think that's from good to great, right? So Jim Collins said that in his book, get the right people on the bus and put them in the right seats, right? And so we've spent some time doing that, and we've got a phenomenal team, and I think they're all in the right seats for today. But I will say this also, things change fast in a small company, right?
Yeah.
If you can't expect that how you are operating today is going to look the same 6 months from now, a year from now, right? You have to be ready to, as you're growing, to think about, okay, today I need a new division I didn't need. Today I need a new type of employee I didn't have
Right.
before. And so you really have to constantly be looking for where are you as a company? What are you doing that's efficient? Don't overspend, right? You got to pay attention to that. Cash flow is king, right? So we've hit all of those challenges along the way and had to figure out how to navigate them. But I think for us, one of the big key is the right people.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a question because many companies, especially since 2020 with the pandemic, have gone remote. Some of them are hybrid, right? And some of them are fully back in the office. So, what is, how do you make, I know a lot of companies will be interested in your answer. So can we maintain a healthy remote and results only-ish work environment where employees are engaged and accountable?
I appreciate that. And I know that we're in a time where that is a big issue. Coming back from the pandemic, a lot of companies are saying you have to come back into the office, and a lot of employees are resisting and choosing to leave. And that's, so we're in this sort of reflection point, or inflection point of in-person or virtual work. And there's benefits to both. Like, certainly not going to say that I could see that being in a physical place sometimes together is really powerful. And I can also see that providing the freedom to people to work where they need to work in order to accommodate their lifestyle is also exceptionally valuable for getting really strong talent onto your team. And so I think the key to making a results only work environment work, which we operate that way, so is that you have to be very, very intentional. Like when you're working together in the same physical space, things happen by osmosis sometimes, right? Like you end up at the water cooler with somebody talking about something, and now all of a sudden an idea gets birthed and you have a new direction. Or there's a challenge that's happening, and you're walking down the hall and you run into somebody that you can ask to get an answer to. You don't have those chance encounters, or the ability to call people into the same space instantly. Well, you kind of do, but to see, at least not in the same physical space
Right.
instantly, right? And so you have to be very intentional. So in our company, we are, I think, doing remote very well. And that doesn't mean we never see each other in person. A lot of our work takes us to school sites or to employers' places of businesses where we're in, small groups, or maybe sometimes all together to execute something that happens in the field. But our day-to-day work is done remote. So, I do work from home most of the time. And to make that work, I would say there's four kind of keys that we have to that. One is we have a regular rhythm of meetings for our team. And that's important because it's so easy to feel disconnected if you're working in a remote environment. It's so easy to be isolated, and we don't want people, that isolation is not a fun place to work. So we have a lot of little company traditions that keep it light and fun, and our rhythm of meetings keeps us connected. So we do a daily meeting every morning at 8 o'clock where everybody is online together talking about what happened yesterday, what's coming up today, maybe what's going on in our life, what did we do over the weekend. And then we do some fun things, like every Friday morning we have Fun Filter Friday. So we take off this professional background and we, do something to show our personality. So just little things to build that sort of culture and camaraderie, I guess, through that connection. But you have to be intentional about it because you don't have a water cooler, right?
Right.
The second thing is strong asynchronous communication systems. chat channels and places where you could share input and ideas. And we do that. We have lots of really very powerful conversations and solutions that happen in our asynchronous chats. And because we're remote, and we can sometimes solve problems faster than we did in a work environment, because when I'm in the work environment, if I don't have a way to get a hold of somebody, I'm waiting for them to come back, or I'm waiting for them to answer my phone call, or I'm waiting for them to answer my email. But because we're remote and everybody wants to be that way, we're very responsive in our asynchronous communication systems. So sometimes they're even more synchronous than some of the in-person experiences, and we solve problems fast.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in places, not in this meeting, but I've been in places where I'm in a meeting, I throw a question out to a chat and I've got the answer before I need to deliver it, in 2 minutes.
Right.
So it's really super helpful if you've built that culture. Accountability systems are important. We use Monday.com, free plug for them. We've built a very robust project management platform where our team it's our one source of truth. So everything we need to record is in there. It's easy to tell when people are active in the work they're supposed to be doing, because we see it unfold in real ways in that system. But I think underlying all of that is that we really have a culture of trust and empowerment. We hire good people and we trust them to do their job. I am not going to create a whole bunch of rules that get in the way of people feeling like we believe in them, because I'm afraid the one person might not.
Right.
The one person that doesn't, let's deal with them. Right. But truthfully, we really just trust our people to do the work that we hired them to do it well, and to care about the company that's giving them the opportunity to work in the way they want to work. So, and it works for us.
Oh, I love that. Thank you. So what's the big goal for 2025 for Tomorrow's Talent?
Take us all the way back to the beginning of the call: internships. Especially for high school students, it is not acceptable to us that only 2% of high school students are getting internship experiences today. And we know how powerful and meaningful they are for making networks happen, for making the real world of work real to young people, right? But we're out there really connecting with employers and helping them to understand how easy it should be to build an internship and how valuable it can be for them. So internships is our big challenge for this year. We're really ramping up that number. So, yeah.
Where do you work with specific types of businesses, or are you pretty agnostic?
We are agnostic to industry. We work with schools primarily, and the schools are asking us to be their extra capacity in outreach and expertise in outreach to the business community. But really, so a lot of what we actually try to reach out to is driven by what the school is trying to connect their students to. But as far as industry goes, we're agnostic. So if there's an industry who wants to set up an internship program, they don't know how, we absolutely can support them in the development of policy that they might have, experiences that they need to design, and connections back to the schools, because a lot of us came from public education. We know how to navigate that system and cut through the bureaucracy to get the results they're hoping to get. So we do have some employers who contract with us. Water agencies tend to like to work with us a lot. They're very forward thinking and recognize that their silver tsunami needs to be, they need to shore up their silver tsunami. Like, how many water puns can I get into a thing about the water agencies? They need a pipeline.
Yeah.
So they work with us. A lot of water agencies do, but yeah, any industry
Yeah.
we can work with, because we can connect them into the schools and help them set up experiences that work for the students. So
For your marketing and visibility, that leads me to this question. I know we have to wrap up to be respectful of your time. We went over today, which this has been so much fun. I don't know, I'm having fun.
told
Hopefully
you I
you
talk a lot.
are having fun. Yeah, I love it. What are the ways that you're getting, what are the marketing efforts that you spend your time in? Like, what is your company, are you doubling down on any marketing efforts? How are you staying visible to be top of mind to the schools or to the businesses?
A few ways, I guess. Certainly, we are seeking opportunities like this to be on podcasts, to go out there and make sure we're proselytizing the issue, right, and really demonstrating thought leadership in the space. So that's one way that we do that. We've got some pretty robust newsletter marketing that happens through like e-newsletters, and with a really strong open rate, quite frankly. So we're really proud of that piece as well. We do some LinkedIn outreach and just old fashioned boots on the ground. We're still very much face to face at industry events or community events or knocking on doors or really just trying to do outreach in those ways. So we just went through a rebranding because it's 5 years. It was time to refresh. So you get to see the first. So,
I love it. So bright,
yeah.
colorful. Yeah, beautiful. My last question for you, Ginger, is what if we could revisit this conversation in a year? And if we do, I'll speak a lot more fluently next time. But if we can,
Promise.
what does success look like for you guys over the next 12 months?
Success for me in 12 months looks like we've placed 1,000 interns. I mean, that's our
Amazing.
goal, is to get 1,000, and preferably high school, but we'll take the college. We want to make the college interns and apprenticeships happen too. So we're looking to place 1,000 students in internship experiences in the next year.
Fantastic. So, Ginger, how can people listening reach out to you and connect?
They can certainly visit our website. There's a form on the website, probably on every single page that you could fill out that would get you to us. But tomorrowstalent.org, so you can go there, realizing that has not yet undergone the new branding. So you can see the old to the new if you're curious. And then, of course, throughout this entire podcast, if you're watching, I've got my email address and phone number up there. So certainly welcome to have you contact me directly, and I'd put you in touch with the team member that best can serve you.
Amazing. So make sure you reach out to Ginger. Go check out the website. And we're going to have all of her links in the company. So it's tomorrowstalent.org. And you can connect with her there. You can connect with her on LinkedIn. But again, you can go to the show notes and we will have all of her info there. If you're watching us, Ginger and I, on YouTube right now, you can see the new branding on the screen. It's gorgeous and bright, and I love it. And if you're, please subscribe and leave Ginger a note below and let us know that you're here. And then if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or any of the other ones, you can leave a review. Please do so. If especially if it's 5 stars, please give us 5 stars. That way we can get these messages out and my special guests out to more people to serve the community, and we can help more kids. We can help more businesses bring in, make sure they're ready to bring in the talent when they're ready by serving these youngsters with internships. It's super important. I know personally by having teens myself. So thank you, Ginger, for being here. I really appreciate your time. It's been amazing.
It has been. Thank you, Heidi. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. It's been my pleasure. And I promised you all a gift. So for those of you listening, if you are wanting to grow your visibility, you're wanting to reach your ideal client and get in front of more people and grow your revenue, and you're feeling like whatever you're doing is not working, then go ahead and go to our Spotlight to Scale.com/blueprint page, and you can go grab your Spotlight to Scale blueprint. Again, that's spotlight2scale.com/blueprint. We will see you on the next episode of the Business Growth Spotlight. Have an amazing rest of your day.